Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinks. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for asking.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mike. Justin is also with us. How are you doing, sir?
I'm also doing well. I for a second there, I thought you weren't going to ask me how I was doing, and I was about to get offended, but
no,
I'm
I always
happy
want
you
to know
did.
how you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The people only really want to know what I'm up to and how I'm feeling.
That's, yes.
Fair enough. If you know what,
Give the people what they want is what I always say.
if that's what the people want, I will never say how I'm doing ever again on the show.
Oh, no, that's...
Okay, so if this is your first time joining us, as always, we like to start off every episode talking about what is on our minds, which is usually the media that we've been watching or reading or otherwise consuming over the past week. Then for our feature review, we will be reviewing Peter Jackson's documentary about World War I, They Shall Not Grow Old, which would normally contain a spoiler-free section, but this week, since it's a documentary about World War I don't know if we're going to be doing a spoiler section. But we will have an extra long What's on Our Mind segment, so don't worry, the episode will be plenty entertaining, we hope.
Plenty long at the very least.
Yeah,
right.
It's a Justin week to edit, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget that each month we review a film from the Criterion Collection. So make sure that you check out our Mulholland Drive episode, and then look forward to our Princess Bride review that's coming up pretty soon. Also, those movies are voted on by you, the listeners, so keep an eye out on Twitter. Justin, where can they find us on Twitter?
They can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast, where they can vote on the poll for our Criterion films. They can also send us questions to answer on the show about the films that we're going to watch and keep up to date with what we're watching next. And if they want to send in questions directly, not on social media, they can send them to our email at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, as always, if you're listening to the show and you haven't done so yet, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and subscribe to us either on iTunes or whatever other podcast platform or app that you listen to podcasts on.
Easiest thing in the world.
And we thank you in advance.
And with that, are we ready to move into what has been on our minds this week?
Not yet.
What?
Not yet.
This is like a Shyamalan movie. There's a twist.
What?
Yes.
Surprise.
Normally we do now, but before we do that this week, we did want to talk about a charity program that we've touted on the show a couple of times before, and we're bringing them back. It's a charity called Real Outreach, and what they do is they buy movie tickets for underprivileged kids and allow them to go out and see a movie because, as stated on their website, they believe that everyone deserves a night or a day out at the movies, and kids who have no control over their circumstances need it the most. So it's a very important cause. I think this week or over the next couple of weeks, they are pushing a Captain Marvel screening. So they're doing a big screening.
Yeah.
They're going to buy a bunch of kids tickets, and it sounds like a great time for some kids to escape.
Yeah, and they just recently met their goal because, cool story, Kevin Smith, the director.
Heard of him?
Yeah, famous on social media. Famous for obviously for like the Jay and Silent Bob movies, Mallrats, Chasing Amy. He actually came across one of these tweets and retweeted it and donated $500 himself just to help a bunch of underprivileged kids go see Captain Marvel, which was extremely heartwarming and awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what? It has kind of inspired us to want to do our part, you know?
Yeah, and just because he's donated $500 doesn't mean that they still don't need your help or our help. So make sure that you go check them out at realoutreach.com. It's REEL. But yes, it's definitely a great, great thing that they're doing.
Right. And it's not like a finite goal that they need. You know, the more money they raise, the more kids can go see the movie. It's that simple. So there's no like end sight, really. Like we could just keep giving, and it's all for a good cause.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you want to find out more about Real Outreach, you can go to realoutreach.com. That's REEL, like a film reel, outreach.com. And they're also on Twitter at Real Outreach.
All right. And with that, are we ready to move into what has been on our minds?
Not quite yet. I've got something.
What?
Just kidding. Go. Let's do it.
News on the mark.
All right, Chris.
Yes, Mike?
What's on your mind, man?
Okay. Yeah. This week, actually, I wanted to say I started doing a weekly review for Cinelinks at cinelinks.com. And so I wrote, my first review was on Cold Pursuit. And I wrote a review on the Liam Neeson remake. The original was called In Order of Disappearance. Have you, either one of you guys seen the original?
No, but
No.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it has Stellan Skarsgård in it, which is interesting. Yeah, I'm really interested to see the original. It's by the same director, so it's kind of like a Heineke thing, with what was the name of that movie? Funny Games,
Right.
where he remade the same movie. Anyways, the same director is Hans-Peter Molland, and like I said, he did both. I wasn't a real big fan of this film, so I was so excited because Laura Dern is in this. So I saw her in there.
I did not know that.
My heart leapt through my, I was just like, oh, this is so awesome. Laura Dern's in it. I get to watch her do a bunch of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then she was gone.
Aw.
She didn't
That's
do
a bummer.
anything.
I didn't know she was in it, and then when you told me that,
Yeah, you got excited,
the amount
right?
that I wanted to see the movie shot up.
Right. And that was my reaction too. And then she was gone. It's supposed to be a really dark comedy, like a funny dark comedy. And it never really, the humor never really gets there. And the thriller elements never really get there, like balancing the two things. I'm not real clear. I really want to see the original just to compare the two, because the original is supposed to be really good. But
Well, even this one has pretty good reviews.
yeah, and that's part of it too. Like I kind of feel like I might be missing something. But just the humor never really gets there, and that dark comedy humor never reaches like the level of Fargo or some of those classic films with that dark comedy. That's kind of how I feel about Cold Pursuit. And if you want to check out the review, you can go to cinelinks.com and check it out.
Hold on a second, and I'm going to go read it and then tell you what I think about your review.
Okay, cool.
But anyways, about Cold Pursuit, that's kind of the vibe that I got from the trailer, to be honest. It seemed like a movie that tried to keep one foot in each genre, and even the trailer didn't really do it for me or get me excited about either side of the film, right? And so I'm not too surprised to hear you say that, but I was hoping that you wouldn't have to say that, or that the film would pull it off and nail it, because I'm down to see Liam Neeson in this type of movie that turns out to be exceptional.
Right, and Liam Neeson is, I think he's the right guy to do a revenge film, like send up the revenge film and kind of twist it on its head, right?
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
he's done so many of them.
Yeah, like in that meta
Yeah.
kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last movie that I saw Liam Neeson in that I was actually somewhat enthusiastic about was
Star Wars Phantom Menace.
The Gray. I think I like
The
the
Gray
Gray.
Oh,
was
right.
good,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The Gray is good.
It looked like Taken with Wolves, and I think it got a kind of a bad rap when it came out because people called it like the wolf punching movie.
Yeah, because
Right.
he gets those knives in his hand and fights the wolves.
But you know what? Spoiler alert, that's not a big part of the movie. It builds all to that, and that movie's actually pretty rad. So
yeah, I like it a lot.
I liked a lot of Liam Neeson movies in the 90s too. I think it was really like after he got into Taken that he kind of became like what I would call an actor that plays in bad movies.
A
Right.
movie that I really want to see, and I feel like you've seen, Mike, is The Silence. Isn't Liam Neeson in that one?
The Silence.
By Martin Scorsese? Isn't
Oh,
it The
just Silence.
Just Silence.
Just Silence.
No,
Okay.
Just Silence. Yeah. Liam Neeson's in that with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
That is an interesting movie that I liked quite a bit. But ultimately, I think it would be a better movie if it wasn't so obvious that Martin Scorsese was a Catholic. But I'll have to let you guys actually watch the movie one day to come to your own conclusions. But
Is that really like Liam Neeson's movie too? Like,
it's not Liam Neeson's movie. It's Andrew
Right.
Garfield's movie for sure. Liam
Oh,
Neeson's out of a 2.5 hour movie. I would say he's in 15 minutes of it.
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. I got one other thing. I just want to let everybody know that I have now seen Singing in the Rain.
Yes.
Join the club. Yawn.
Yeah. Now I'm part of the cool club.
Oh.
Yeah, welcome to the club of people who have seen great movies.
Yeah.
So what'd you think?
I loved it. I thought it was really great. It may not be my favorite musical of all time, but I did really enjoy it.
That's wrong.
It's I'm still smiling about it. I love the numbers. Even the
What's the best musical of all time?
oh boy, Singing in the Mountains.
Oh yeah, damn it, I forgot about that one.
That's a callback to last week's episode. Anyways, I don't know what my favorite musical of all time is right now, but I really like I liked all the numbers. I even liked the big Broadway number that didn't necessarily feel like it fit in the movie. But
that is my least favorite part of the movie.
Yeah,
the one with
I liked it still.
Sid Charisse.
Yeah. But I loved Make Them Laugh. I thought that was a really great one. Singing in the Rain, of course. Just the song alone is great. But yeah, I really, really love this. I'm glad. Yeah, well, Good Morning is really good, yeah. Moses Supposes His Toes are Roses.
Yes.
And then actually I've listened to this, Justin, on the Cinemusts podcast, so good job with that, Justin.
I think one of the musical numbers that gets overlooked a lot is the Fit as a Fiddle number that happens when at the beginning when Gene Kelly's like telling the story of how him and Donald O'Connor got to Hollywood, and there's like that show, them do like performing at like this vaudeville sort of show. Like that number, it happens and it's kind of a flashback, so, and it's just the two of them, but like that number is amazing. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that number lets me know that I'm going to have a good time.
Yeah, and that you're watching two skilled people dance. Like it's impressive.
Yeah,
exactly.
My grandma still compares every leading man to Gene Kelly. Like when I talk to her, she's like, "I would just like to see Gene Kelly dance," you know, and like she just like talks about how that's all she looked forward to when she was a kid. Oh. So like that's what the people showed up for.
Yeah, apparently. I guess I'm gonna have to disagree with your grandma a bit. Like I love Singing in the Rain, but the other Gene Kelly movies I've seen have both left me, kind of lukewarm. Like I wasn't that big on them. Which the two I've seen would be An American in Paris and Anchors Away.
Yeah, I agree with you on American in Paris, and I think I've seen Anchors Away actually, but it's been a long time. But you know what? I would bet she's probably seen more Gene Kelly movies than you.
That's true, but I like to think that I've gone and seen some of like the bigger ones, with the exception of like I haven't seen On the Town, which is a pretty big one.
My grandma seems pretty worldly when it comes to Gene Kelly.
So
I have no doubt
guys,
she's seen more, but
there's really only one way to decide this. And Mike, you need to bring your grandma on this podcast,
and then her and Justin need to fight.
Yeah.
Bring her like in real life down to Houston, and we'll actually fight. I think I'll lose, but I'm willing to take my chances.
Yeah. She's got like probably like 60 years of experience on you.
I know. 60 years of cunning.
Yeah,
that I can't compete with.
All right. But, so now what's on my mind is Justin and Mike's grandma fighting.
Right.
But actually, that's all I had that's on my mind.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike? What have you been up to? What's on your mind?
Yeah, so this week, I had some free time. I didn't have anything to edit. So I actually watched a good bit. I'll keep it down to just the movies that I watched, though. The first one being Zodiac, the director's cut on Blu-ray.
Oh, nice.
I had actually sent this out on our Casual Cinecast Twitter, and I had asked, should I watch the new Suspiria with Dakota Johnson, like the Luca Guadagnino film?
Mm-hmm.
Or should I watch Zodiac, which I recently bought on Blu-ray the other day? Overwhelmingly, the results came in to watch Zodiac, and my girlfriend had never seen it, so we did.
Nice.
Yeah, and it has been a long time since I have seen Zodiac. I'm not really sure what is new in the director's cut. Like, I know this version is like 162 minutes, and it looks like the theatrical version is 157 minutes. So maybe it's not that much longer. But
is that 5-minute difference by my count?
Yeah. I'm not really sure where the differences lie, to be honest, because I haven't seen the theatrical version in so long. But anyway, when was the last time you guys watched Zodiac? And what did you think at the time?
I watched it within the last year or so. I watched it
nice.
with my then girlfriend, now fiance, who had never seen it before.
Oh, I was about to say, did you break up with a girlfriend that I didn't know about in the last year?
No. That would be weird.
Yeah, that's what I thought for a minute. I was like, what in the world are you saying?
No. But anyways, we watched it because she'd never seen it, and we both thought it was incredible. And that was probably my second time to see it, and probably it'd been 8 years or so since I'd seen it. And yeah, it's really good.
It really is, man. It's so good. Robert Downey Jr. is great. I think this is probably one of Jake Gyllenhaal's best performances. This was like, if I remember correctly, looking back, I think this was like David Fincher's first step towards being like a mature filmmaker. Like, this was before Social Network, before Gone Girl. At this point, he was known for like Alien 3 and Fight Club in like 7.
Mm-hmm.
And
The Game, or what was the Michael
yeah, I
Douglas
guess The
film?
Game. But in my opinion, there's a stark difference between pre-Zodiac David Fincher and post-Zodiac David Fincher.
Agreed.
Do you guys feel that at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the pre-Fincher, from what I'm remembering and think the ones that I'm thinking of are like sort of like heavy concept.
Movies high school kids would like.
Yeah.
I like some of them.
Well, I do too,
yes.
but I'm just saying, like, it's geared towards a younger audience, and then all of a sudden it seems like in like 2006, 2007, he switches gears and kind of just becomes like a more mature filmmaker, I think.
More subtle, for sure.
Yeah.
I think
I
it's
guess
more
maybe that's what
interested
it is.
in he gets more interested in characters rather than concepts and
Yeah.
suspense and twists and that sort of thing,
he's-
which that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I don't think he uses the camera for that. I think his biggest faux pas, the one I always think of, is in Panic Room, where like the camera's like going through the locks and stuff like that. It's kind of not his best.
Anyway, that's all I really have about Zodiac now. Is just this movie, I think, is underrated. I remember when that movie came out, and I went to theaters to see it. I don't remember if you were there or not, Justin.
Zodiac?
Yeah.
I was not.
You were not? Okay.
No.
I remember I went to go see it, and there was actually like a group of people with me at the time. And I remember those of them who knew who David Fincher was, they were very much expecting a Fight Club kind of vibe.
Right.
Right? And I remember very distinctly the people I was with were really disappointed. But I remember thinking at the time, oh, this is good. This is better than something like a Fight Club vibe, right? Where it all depends on the twist, or it all depends on like you said, a high concept. So anyway, I don't know. I for my money, I think this is the beginning of David Fincher becoming a serious filmmaker to take note of.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think going over his movies in my head, I'm going to say I'm pretty sure Zodiac is pretty easily my favorite movie of his.
It might be my favorite. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Social Network is really, really good.
Yeah.
I like Gone Girl a lot too.
I like Gone Girl a lot as well. And I even like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, even though I don't know if it would hold up super well, just because like I don't know if like that de-aging technology would look good now.
The special effects will eventually date themselves, unfortunately.
I
with a
think they
movie
were
like that.
dated when the movie came out, to be honest with you.
Did they like work on it so long, and then by the time it came out?
Well, I don't know. I just remember like the first time you see Brad Pitt fully de-aged for the first time, like 20-year-old Brad Pitt in that movie, it looked weird.
So it just it
Even back then.
yeah, it just didn't work. Like the technology didn't work in general back then.
Right. That said, I still have very fond memories of The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and it's at least a unique movie.
Me too. Yeah, I've always really liked that one a lot.
I think Brad Pitt's really good in it too. It's one of his better movies.
Yeah. It's hard for me to judge David Fincher movies because they're movies that I watch on the first time, and usually I at least enjoy them. But for most of them, I've either rarely had a desire to watch again, or when I've tried to watch them again, I've never been able to make it through. Like, and that's happened with Social Network, and it's happened with Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. I've only seen most of his films once, and Zodiac is probably one of a few that I've seen more than once in it, and it's, you know, it's the best based on that. So I guess I'm caveating me saying Zodiac is my favorite with I would like to watch the other ones again someday.
Yeah. I need to see Zodiac again. I just recently watched like a YouTube video about special effects and stuff like that, and the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo actually has more special effects shots than
There's a reel of it on the Blu-ray that tells you, like, it shows you the before and after shots, like after they had
the
snow
blood's not real, and Zodiac's the same way, but it has more than like your Marvel movies. You know, you just don't see it. You know,
it's just
because it's
artfully done.
Yeah, I think if you kind of follow along with Fincher's career, you see that happening with all his special effects and the stuff that he does behind the camera, and you get to a place where he gets to character and he's using special effects for other reasons. Anyways, it's really great to watch his career, I think, too.
Yeah,
as he matures, like you were
saying.
saying.
I absolutely agree. So anyone who is a passing fan of David Fincher, or maybe hasn't seen as much David Fincher as you want or think you should, go for Zodiac. I think that it marks a turning point in his career. It marks one of a career best for Jake Gyllenhaal so far. And Robert Downey Jr. is charming in it, and it's just a good procedural drama, Mm-hmm. It's very reminiscent of that show he has going on right now on Netflix.
Mindhunters?
Yeah, Mindhunter. It has that kind
definitely.
of vibe to it.
I can't wait for season 2 of that. But
yeah, which I like that show, by the way, and I'm also looking forward to season 2. The other thing, unless anyone has anything else they want to say about David Fincher or Zodiac.
Not right now. Maybe later.
No. All right. The other thing I saw this week was I went to the AMC IMAX nearest me to see the documentary Free Solo, which is an Oscar-nominated documentary this year, up for Best Documentary. Have either of you guys... What, go on?
It's about Star Wars fans trying to get their hands on a copy of Solo for free.
The Lord and Miller cut of Solo. Yeah.
Free Solo!
No, it's about free soloing, which anyone who doesn't know what that is, that means climbing a mountain without any kind of protective gear. No ropes, no anything. Like, completely just... like as you are now, going up to a mountain and beginning to climb.
Oof.
Yeah, and getting hundreds and thousands of feet in the air for hours while you just climb a rock face. Have you guys seen or heard of this movie at all? I know you guys have probably heard of it by now, but do you know anything about it, really?
Yeah, more or less.
The
Just
heard,
the concept of basically what you've said, and of course it's nomination, and that's about it.
Yeah, this movie is... I have conflicted feelings about it. It's a masterfully made documentary, right? It's a great character study. It really dives into the psyche of, like, what kind of human being would do this? like you right? Like, I mean, that's it's a weird thing to want to climb without ropes. This guy who is portrayed in the movie is very awkward. He feels like climbing a mountain is less scary than interacting with people. Right? He is struggling to keep his relationship in the movie alive, right? But he's not very good with people, and he likes to go climb mountains and put his life in danger, so that puts strain on his relationship, even though his girlfriend is trying really hard to be understanding. And he's not very good with girls or relationships in general. So the crux of the movie is very much like a character piece about, why do this? Like, why do this to yourself? Why do you feel the need to climb a mountain with no ropes just to feel alive? And also, the documentarians, the director of the film and the crew, a lot of it has to do with their feelings on actually filming their friend who they've come to know doing free solo climbs where he could die, right? Like, he could just, like, in an instant, he could fall out of the frame, and that will be the last time anyone sees him because he will die.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to do kind of with, like, their feelings on the whole thing, how they come to terms with filming him do this, and so on. And it actually goes through, like, each dangerous place in the climb. Like, each place has, like, their own, like, little nickname. Like there's, like, the slopes, and then there's, like, the devil's, backbone or whatever, right? Like, they've all got, like, their little, like, places on the climb,
right?
Like the most dangerous places. So, like, a lot of it has to do with, like, the technicalities of them filming this without being in his line of vision, without affecting his state of mind, because everything is riding on this climb. Like, he cannot have his state of mind affected. It just cannot happen.
Right.
Let me ask you, if it's not a spoiler, I mean, how long does it take him from bottom to top to climb?
In the movie, they actually talk about whenever he approaches, like, the climb that we're all here to see, he's making way better time than they anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, it takes a long time. It will take you all day. Like, he has to leave and prepare to, like, leave at, like, 4 a.m. when it's still dark outside just so he can get like some kind of distance before the sun comes up, because like the sun's going to be going up and down while he's doing this, you know? Mm-hmm. So for them to have good light for most of the climb, he has to leave pretty early.
So the film, it kind of focuses on one big climb?
Yeah,
as opposed to
it's him basically
life.
Training to climb this free solo climb that no one has ever accomplished before.
Okay.
Like, he's setting out to climb something that's apparently so dangerous that most people haven't climbed it without falling with ropes.
Gotcha.
And his goal is to like climb it with no ropes, right? And obviously, if you fall with no ropes, you're just dead. So that's the end of the trying to climb. So in it, they go through like he doesn't have any to desire. Like you might think like he's like suicidal or he's like mentally unstable, but like the guy very much does not want to die, right? And he especially doesn't want to die in front of people watching him.
Right.
So anyway, it's very fascinating. It's super stressful, but I watched it on IMAX and it was beautiful. Like there are just scenes that are just so stressful. I don't know how else to say it, but it's just masterfully made and very suspenseful. But ultimately, I feel like this guy, I come away not liking him very much after the movie's over with, right? Like I think he's kind of a selfish jerk, even though the movie tries really hard to make me understand him. I can't, there's no way I can look at this movie without thinking this guy is completely selfish, and anyone dating him is a lunatic. Right? So
right.
Anyway, but as far as the documentary goes, I cannot recommend it enough. I definitely recommend everyone see it in IMAX if you can.
Sweet. I have one question about the IMAX, or maybe the film in general. How much does it affect like your, I guess I want to say like equilibrium, or like does it have shots that like in IMAX make you feel sort of like vertigo-ish or dizzy, or like you're high up?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's actually filmed in IMAX is the thing.
Right. Okay.
Like there's no like Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol moment, right? Where like you lean out the building and you're like, holy crap, you know, and you have to like grab onto your seat to like make sure you're not going to fall forward.
Right. Okay.
There's none of that, I don't think. But that said, the images are really clear. I don't know what they filmed on, but I'm pretty sure they couldn't get IMAX cameras over a cliff.
Probably not.
Because what you have to keep in mind is like all the people filming this are hanging from ropes 30 feet above him while someone else is holding that rope, you know? So like the acrobatics and the mountain climbing skills involved just to film it are fascinating in itself. So I went home and watched some YouTube not documentaries, but I watched some YouTube videos about how they approached filming it, and those are just as interesting as the movie itself.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
Yeah, so it's not like professional IMAX, but it is more stressful than like you know, your average like studio movie that's going to play on an IMAX screen.
Sure, that makes sense.
So ultimately, I would not be surprised if this wins an Academy Award for Best Documentary. I don't know that I want it to, just because I think the subject matter is a little slight, and I think I have moral objections to filming and glorifying free soloing.
Okay, that's interesting.
I just don't think this is the kind of thing that we should promote regularly, because it's so dangerous. Like it's so dangerous. Like I almost saw this guy die, you know, and I can't help but think the whole time, like if he died during the making of this, it would not have been worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it comes down to, was this something he was going to do anyways, and they decided to film it?
And I think that's what it is. Like they addressed that in the movie. Like the filmmakers have like moral qualms with like filming this. So that's all addressed in the movie. So I would say see it, and then we could talk about it more. But just ultimately, I don't want a whole new slew of documentaries of people doing purposely dangerous things for glory. You know? Tell
that to the Jackass guys.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I maybe it's splitting hairs. I don't know. But free soloing, man, it's insane. It's an insane person's sport.
Intense. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's it for me. Like I said, I've watched a whole lot of stuff, but I'll just keep it there because we got a lot to talk about. Yeah. So Justin, what's on your mind?
Okay, so I got a few things to talk about. A couple of them I'll hit on pretty quickly. The first one, Chris, you already mentioned that this week I guested on the Cinemusts podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And on that episode, we talked about Singin' in the Rain. And we also talked about The Artist. And basically what they do on that podcast is they debate the must-see status of their films. So we debated whether or not those two films are must-see films. And what they do is they have a poll every week after their episode comes out for like the listeners to go vote. So just wanted to point you guys to Cinemusts, where you can both listen to the episode and vote in their poll. And you can do that on cinemusts.com, or also follow their Twitter feed at Cinemusts, and check them out. They're a good show, and it was a whole lot of fun to like be on there and talk about those movies. It's their host Mike is a great dude.
Yeah, I listened to that episode today while I was at work, and it was entertaining. I enjoyed the whole thing. It's long. It's like 2 hours.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's very long, and we talk about that several times, I think, during the episode. It's like, man, we're going long, but it's Singin' in the Rain, and it's hard to like just not talk about all of the great things that are in that movie, because there's so many things about it that are great.
Yeah, it was a great review of Singin' in the Rain and a fair review of The Artist.
Definitely.
So, good episode. Listen to it.
Yep, and it's a Cinemust podcast. And the other thing that I want to talk about, and if you follow like our podcast feed, if you subscribe, you would have seen this in our previous episode. But for those people who didn't listen to our last episode, I wanted to announce that my film that I directed as like my grad school thesis, and since it was in some film festivals, has been around that little circuit for a while, but now it's finally come out on Amazon.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we did, the interview episode. So if you want to find out a lot more about the film, go back and listen to the episode before this episode in the feed. And there's an interview with myself and John, who was the co-writer on the film. So we talk a lot more in depth about a little bit of what the film's about, a lot about the making of the film, and, kind of like insight into making indie film. But for now, go check out the film. It's on Amazon. It's free if you have Amazon Prime. And if you don't, you can still rent it for $2.99 or buy it for $9.99. So go check that out. It's a dark comedy film. It's 75 minutes, super easy to watch.
Yeah, very reminiscent of like 90s like dark comedies.
Yeah, the script is a very like heavy early Kevin Smith vibe, and that's what I've heard it compared to a lot. So yeah. I heard you mention that on the Cinemusts episode. Yeah. So that is Camino, as in El Camino without the L. Yeah, and when you search for it, it's usually, at least when I've done it, it's the first one to pop up. But my name's Justin Herring. If you look at it, that I'm listed as the director, obviously, and the artwork is like a blue poster with a hand drawn like El Camino and a red cooler on it. So it's pretty unmistakable compared to all of the like 40 million other Caminos that exist in the world.
Hey, so Justin, if people were interested in finding out more about your movie or following the progress on it, where would they find more information about that?
Yeah, so the movie has a Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of them kind of different. So Facebook is at Camino Movie. Twitter is at Camino_movie. And Instagram is at Camino the Movie.
Oh my.
And they're all different because nothing that made sense was like the same on all of them. And they also were set up at like wildly different times. But follow those and we'll keep you posted on any other platforms we show up on. But, for now we're just on Amazon. So go check it out.
Yeah, do it.
But yeah, so I just wanted to announce that. And then now I'll get on to something that I've watched this week. And Chris, you can join in this conversation because we went and watched this together. We went to the Alamo Drafthouse, and we saw Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon on the big screen.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. How was it?
Quite good. Better than I remember the film being, because it's been a long time since I've watched it, and it was never one of my favorite Kurosawa films. And
it's so good, though.
Yeah, it is really good. And I've always thought it was good, right? But like compared to other ones, there were other ones of his that I held in a lot higher esteem.
Sure.
But maybe it's like seeing it on the big screen and that sort of bias, but like this time it was just like, holy crap, like I'm watching like a masterpiece film right now. This is so effing good.
Yeah, agreed. It's really great. It's it's cutting hairs, but it's not Kurosawa's best, but I love it. And I love this is the origin of that, the Rashomon effect, the way that he tells that story. We have seen it. It's like the Darth Vader is Luke's dad moment, right? Everybody knows it. Even if you've never seen Star Wars, you know that moment, right? And it's the same thing with Rashomon. Even if you've never seen Rashomon, you know that story. Just the way it tells the stories about different perspectives and stuff like that.
Right. So I guess what you're describing, for people who haven't seen Rashomon, the Rashomon effect is essentially whenever you see the same story told multiple times from different perspectives within a movie, and each time you learn a little bit more from gaining the new perspective, right?
Well, yeah.
So I guess you mentioned Star Wars in comparison to that. Like, everyone knows, like, Luke's, I am your father from Vader and all that. But the actual Rashomon effect in practice was used in the most recent Star Wars film.
Right.
The Last Jedi. Spoilers for that real quick. There's a flashback scene with Luke, and there's also a flashback scene with Kylo Ren, and it's the same scene told from different perspectives. And each time you learn a little bit more about the characters. That is essentially what the Rashomon effect is, and the movie you guys are talking about is where that term came from.
Correct,
right,
yes.
yeah. And it's about dead bodies found in the woods, and then these three guys are sitting in a temple later talking about the story of what happened from like the court trial where each person involved like told their version of the story, and so yeah, you get like these three different perspectives of the same situation throughout the film, and it's just really well told and really well edited, and like all the performances are fantastic, and it really holds up. I would say because of its subject matter, in some ways it holds up a little better than some of the other Kurosawa films, like the samurai films, because it's a bit more human and a little bit less like sword fighty.
Yeah, there's definitely a human element to it, or like it reveals something about what it is to be human, right?
Yeah, and that's not to dog on any other Kurosawa films. It just
no, for sure.
Speaking about general accessibility here. But yeah, so that was at the Alamo Drafthouse, which the one near us in Houston is doing like every Sunday they're playing a film from the Criterion Collection. I don't know if that's a all over the place Alamo Drafthouse. So if you have one near you, check and see if they're doing the same thing, because it's pretty rad.
And also, special shout out to Chris from War Starts at Midnight, who also lives down there in Houston. We met up with him and got to have a short conversation, which could have been longer, but it was pretty cool to meet another podcaster. So thanks for coming out, Chris.
Yeah, I like the War Starts at Midnight show, so definitely check them out.
Absolutely.
I'm also bummed that I didn't get to participate in this meetup, but I don't live in Houston.
Yeah.
No.
Next
You
time,
live
man.
further away.
I do.
But maybe we know these are on Sundays, so like if you want to come down on one Sunday and make a plan, maybe we can like pick out a really awesome movie when they're showing something like really rad or important.
Yeah, I agree, because that would be worth it just to see some pretty awesome movies with my podcast bros.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so that is it for me for what's on my mind this week. I think we have one more kind of general on our minds that we want to talk about, right?
Oh, yeah. So we wanted to go ahead and talk about the recent news that has been making the rounds in regards to the Academy Awards for the 2019 ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like everyone has an opinion on these new announcements. So, Justin, why don't you go into a little bit more detail and we can see what we think.
Yeah, so the Oscars came out and they announced which of the 4 categories they're going to be not airing on the live TV show in order to, like, I guess, cut down and save time. And those 4 categories are Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Live Action Short, and Best Hair and Makeup.
Ugh.
Yeah, an odd list, and I think a couple of them I'm not too surprised by, like Live Action Short, and I actually like my guess when they said they were going to not be announcing some on the air to save time, I figured they would do both of the short categories, the live action short, the animated short, and also the short documentary. I thought would be gone.
Yeah, did you guys see what Guillermo del Toro posted about this?
Yeah, and his feelings lined up with mine a lot.
Yeah, he kind of revised it today, so I'll go ahead and read the revised tweet.
Okay.
Real quick. So Guillermo del Toro, obviously known for many movies, The Shape of Water, Pan's Labyrinth, Hellboy, etc. He's saying, and this is the reposted version, so it says reposting revised, I would not presume to suggest what categories should occur during commercials on Oscars night. But please, cinematography and editing are the very heart of our craft. They are not inherited from a theatrical or literary tradition. They are cinema itself.
I mean, that's my issues with it, is like editing and sound are like the things that film can
Make
have
cinema
over
cinema.
other art forms. Yeah.
Right. It reminds me of whenever you and I were in a cinema class, Justin, a history of cinema, and our teacher was showing us, what movie was it? Ruggles of Red Gap?
Yeah, we watched that one in there.
Was that the one where the character was really embarrassed by something that was going on? So the very next shot, it cuts to him far away, like he ran away, so he wouldn't be next to the person that was embarrassing him.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And it shows him visually like really far away in the next shot, so it's like really comical that he got so far away so quickly. I remember our teacher told us at that moment, he's like, this is what cinema's all about. This is a joke that could not be done on stage. This is a joke that could only be done through the art of cinema. It's a very visual gag. It only works because of the shot composition and the editing and the timing, right?
Right.
That's something you can't recreate on stage. It's something you can't recreate in a book. It's something you can't recreate except through editing and the way the whole scene was filmed. And I think that perfectly sums up kind of how I feel about this, which is just, I agree, right? Like, I mean, editing and cinematography have so much of an effect on the mood, the vibe, the effectiveness of a movie.
Yes.
I don't know. It's just insane to me that they would do something like this. What do you guys think?
Oh, I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, I've been revisiting this story of film documentary that was on Netflix a while ago. I just found out it was on Hulu, and I was rewatching it. And in the first episode, he's talking about the discovery of editing, or the discovery of like changing from shot to shot. And there's an example he uses from an early film called The Life of an American Firefighter. Or maybe it's just Life of a Firefighter, something like that. But he's talking about how the shot is outside of a burning house, and we see the firefighter go in, and then we cut to the inside of a room that's burning, and there's a woman trapped inside. And he basically said that, like, okay, in an instant, the surrounding the set and the characters have all changed from outside of a house and firefighters to into a bedroom and a woman trapped with like fire around her. He's like, you can't do that instantaneously in theater, right? Like, you can't do that. Right. It's impossible. And that's what makes cinema in a sense. And so, I mean, to me, editing it's insane. And then to me, cinematography, like it's really, really important, but it seems like one of those categories, regardless of like its cinema importance in like history or whatever, like it's such a popular category. People seem to be really into that one. So it just seems like a strange one to cut just on those grounds alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, this is all so the Oscars can be more relevant in the ratings, right? Like, this is all them trying to combat the fact that no one watches the Oscars live.
It kind of feels like they're selling their soul in order to be...
Exactly. It's like they're ensuring their own demise.
Yeah, and they're also, like, the people that want the 4-hour thing, they're just making them angrier and angrier by doing these cuts and these different things. Like, and that's their fan base. You don't anger your fan base, you know. Like, I think that you got to maybe bring people in with other things or something. I don't know, but I just don't think that they're going down the right path.
Yeah.
Right.
Here.
And so to me, as someone who has been a casual fan of the Oscars since I was a little kid, I've been paying attention since probably about 2006, 2007, something like that. What this does to me is it makes me come to the conclusion that the Oscars are all bullshit and nothing matters. Right? Like,
yeah.
Like, it used to be like the Oscars were something that, like, they never really mattered, but like they were something that like were to be respected and revered.
Right.
Yeah. You can watch and have fun, right?
Yeah, and now it seems like none of that matters. The artistic integrity of the ceremony doesn't matter. The awards don't matter. Nothing matters. What's the point of watching this? Who cares? You know?
Right. Okay, so I have something that's not necessarily popular for me to say. All right, let's say, like, we don't know exactly how they're going to do this. I know that they're not going to be aired live, right? But they're going to be on tape delay. So they're still going to show them, right? Like, they're still going to show the speech. correct of the winner? I mean, like,
I don't know.
I assume it'd be like a neutered version of it.
yeah, where I guess maybe they just don't have the build up. Is there a way that they can still show it and still be satisfying? Like, maybe they
don't change anything.
well, I mean, with the changes,
I don't think
know.
there is. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get more ratings, which is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Nothing from now on is ever going to have higher ratings than it used to. It just won't happen.
There's a thing called the internet, and
Right. No one watches things real time. No one watches things on TV. Most young people can't even afford TV. Right? Like, as someone who works in a cable company who sells internet and cable, I can tell you, most people can't afford cable who are young, right? Like, that's why people pirate stuff. It's not because it's easier and because they want to. It's because no one can afford it anymore. It's outrageously expensive and no one cares. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to they're trying to feed a dying medium when they should be looking to the future, towards the internet, towards streaming, which I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
But the idea to try to like make the 3-hour live broadcast ceremony on television be what you're catering towards is insane.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, and there's what you're saying makes sense. There's a couple of ways that they could air this live on the internet. Like Hulu, I believe, has a live type subscription where you can watch things live. Or you could do that on the CBS app, you know. And then it can be 4 hours long if you want it to be. And then people can watch it tomorrow if they want to, or skip around however they want. You know, I feel like that's the only answer as opposed to doing it live. You know, I don't know. It's pretty ridiculous, I think.
Yeah, well, so 2 caveats to the things that were announced. One, they said that all 4 excluded categories for this year are guaranteed to be announced on air next year. So they're going to be rotating categories, which is not necessarily a good thing. That doesn't make it better, but at least they're not like trying to axe it permanently, right?
I mean, but that just makes me stressed for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are they going to... Are they going to get rid of Best Picture next year?
Just get rid of all the best songs. Who cares? Just give Lady Gaga an Academy Award and save us the effort of seeing her, like, or save us, like, her singing, right?
I mean, they were going to do that. They were going to do that, and people were... I mean, you may not care about it, but lots of people do care about those songs. I mean, I'm kind of with you, Mike, but...
Somebody's going to get mad no matter what you do, right? And I have two main things that I want to say about it, and number one being, like, the people who watch the Oscars and still watch the Oscars and are going to watch the Oscars don't care if it's 4 hours or not, right? And I think what they're trying to do is cater to an audience that doesn't exist and won't exist because they don't care. Like, I don't think that, like, cutting 4 categories, even if optimistically we'll say that cuts an hour out of the show, right?
That seems like a lot.
Okay, 3 hour, it is a lot. That's not going to happen. But a 3 hour versus a 4 hour Oscar ceremony isn't going to reel in a new audience, right? For reasons you've mentioned, Mike, for just general reasons of, like, those people already aren't interested. So to me, it doesn't really make any sense to be doing this.
It just shows the people who do care that the people running the show don't care.
Yeah, it's like all it's really doing is alienating people who care already. So it's kind of, it seems pointless. But the other thought that I have on this, and it's a bit conspiracy theory and like my weird brain thinking about this, so bear with me and feel free to totally disagree and shoot me down. But I think that before the ceremony happens, I don't know if it'll be a week from now, 2 weeks from now, the night before, I don't know. But I think they're going to come out and they are going to change their minds on which categories aren't going to be announced. They are going to bring back cinematography and film editing, and they're going to throw in like the other, like maybe like the short film categories or the sound editing and sound mixing categories or something like that, right? And the reason that I think they're going to do this is because I think they're operating under the let's create controversy by pulling out 2 extremely big and important categories and getting everyone riled up and paying attention to this. And everyone will be like, no, you got to bring them back. And then we'll bring them back and no harm will be done in the end. But in the meantime, we've drummed up all this press and controversy around the Oscars, and maybe more people will be paying attention or at least be aware that it's going to happen.
So are you saying that before the Oscar ceremony, they are going to change their minds and backtrack and announce that at least editing and what is it, short film?
Cinematography. Editing and cinematography will be back in, and 2 other categories will replace it.
So you think that those are going to be broadcast on air this year?
Yes. And the reason they're including these is to pick 2 controversial choices to drum up press.
Right. I would not doubt it, but if it turns out they do it, I would not be convinced that it's because of your reason and not just because they fucked up again, like with the most popular film category, right?
Yeah.
Like, they may turn around and do that, and I hope it does. And I will even admit that you are right when that happens. But a part of me will always suspect that it was just incompetence, not like a greater plan.
There's no way to know. That's just like my personal, like, thinking and thinking the least of people sometimes, or at least like people in charge of major organizations like that.
No, it makes sense. They know exactly what they're doing, I'm sure. Or they don't. And I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Anyways, that's my final thought on the Oscars. Just want to get my thoughts out there, my theories.
It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Definitely.
I think that does it for what is on our minds, right?
Whoa.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
Yeah.
It was a big one.
I guess now we talk about They Shall Not Grow Old.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I was 16 years old, and my father allowed me to go.
I was just turned 17 at the time.
I was 16. I was 15 years.
When they came to us, they were frightened children and had to be made into soldiers.
Boys, here it comes. We're in the pictures.
Okay, so as stated in the beginning of the episode, because this is a documentary about World War I, we will not have a spoiler and spoiler-free section. We're just going to talk about the film. If it contains spoilers, you should have known them by now. And, yeah.
All right, so They Shall Not Grow Old, directed by Peter Jackson. The IMDb synopsis says, a documentary about World War I with never-before-seen footage to commemorate the centennial end of the war.
Cool, but I think they leave out a very important aspect, which I'm sure we'll hit on, unless you guys want to remind people up front.
No, I think they do as well, which is that Peter Jackson converted the entirety of the footage he used into 3D and colorized, I would say, probably about 70% of it.
Yeah.
At least of the footage that's actually in the documentary, which is sort of the gimmick, right? Which is sort of like what makes this different than every other World War I documentary. And I think it's worth putting in the synopsis.
Yeah, I think so too. And like, I mean, just going off of that a little bit, he also restored a lot of the footage because a lot of it didn't look very good. So just like cleaned it up, generally speaking, as well, and made it look a lot better than it's looked before. And then also played with the frame rate because a lot of that footage was hand cranked film, so it was shot at 16 frames per second, which gives you that effect of like, it seems like they're moving in fast motion, and he converted a lot of it all to like be more like 24 frames per second and look like they're walking in real motion.
Yeah, I actually watched a YouTube video about him talking about that process, and it was actually really interesting. He's saying that like sometimes when like the cameraman's cranking at 16 frames per second, like the computer program they were using actually had to generate brand new frames to make it 24 frames per second, like generate frames that didn't exist based on what came before and after it. And then also get rid of frames, because sometimes if the cameraman was really excited and he was hand cranking the camera, sometimes all of a sudden you could jump up to like 30 something frames per second.
Right.
So you had to like find that balance, and that was part of like a lot of what was so difficult about making this movie, on top of just restoring the footage itself.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that the film itself, I don't know about your screening, Mike, but mine and Chris's both had the after the credits there was about 20 to 30 minute sort of behind the scenes making of thing as well.
It's definitely worth sticking around for.
Yeah,
definitely.
None of that's in the synopsis.
None of it. That's all the intriguing stuff.
I know that, but that would be a very long synopsis, to be fair.
I agree. So I'll go ahead and start off with my thoughts on the film and everything like that.
Sure.
So this was a film that I was really bummed I did not get to see during its special screenings back in December.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was in and out of theaters very quickly. And I believe at that time I think I was cramming in movies that week for our Best of the Year episode or something like that. So I was in like a mad rush to just watch everything I possibly could. So I did not find time to see this in theaters. So finally, when it got a wider release and I was ready to go see it, the word of mouth for this thing had been extremely positive, right? Like they brought it back for a special theatrical run that it was not intended to have because the special screenings were so popular. So I've never seen a Peter Jackson documentary before. I've seen a lot of his movies, enough to know that I am not really a big fan of Peter Jackson.
Understandable.
Yeah, most of the films that I did like were all pre-Lord of the Rings. So with this movie, I was not sure what to expect. Ultimately, I left really enjoying this film. I honestly can't find much in the movie not to like. And to be honest, I do have a couple things. But Peter Jackson kind of talked about how the deal for him to make this documentary was that he had to use old footage. So he asked himself, what would be the best thing to do to make this all feel new and interesting? And what we ended up with, I think, is very effective. Seeing the old film footage in color is amazing. Especially to hear him talk about how, they had to generate new frames and clean up the old footage and all that. That's all very fascinating. Sometimes I feel like those old hand-cranked cameras that were filming, like at 13 frames per second or whatever, it fascinates me that footage is still alive, can still be processed and cleaned up like this. To me, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I think looking at this footage in color has the desired effect. It comes to life in a way that I've never thought of, like the old World War footage coming to life. You know what I mean? It just feels so clear and it feels so new. And you can see these people as young men instead of just like these ageless black and white soldiers, They actually seem like young, 18, 19-year-old, even sometimes in this movie, 16, 17-year-old men,
Yeah.
If I had to pick something about this film that I did not care for, it would be the 3D.
Did you see it in 3D?
I did. I enjoyed it, but I felt like it cut too much of the color out. Like when I went home and watched a bunch of clips on YouTube, that was way clearer and more satisfying than watching it in theaters in 3D. So ultimately where I come down is that this movie is incredible, but in my opinion, the 3D does not add enough that the color and the restoration of the film doesn't already do for you. But it's definitely worth seeing. I mean, that is hands down. See it. So, Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. The difference being that I saw it in 2D and not 3D, and I don't
jealous.
really have any complaints. Yeah. Like I can totally understand how that could be a complaint, but having seen it in 2D, most of the footage looks spectacular. I mean, if I'm gonna get nitpicky, which is it's stupid to be nitpicky about this, but like there are like very weird looking things that are a bit like uncanny valley off-putting about some of the effects that are in there. And from time to time, it would not so much bother me in like a way that I'm like, oh, I don't like that or that's bad. You should have done that better. Not in that way. It's just a little
that's clearly touched up.
A little weird to look at, like the way that some of their faces move, or like it seems more like they kept like we go through like 3 or 4 frames of footage, but their faces stayed the same for all 3 or 4. Their face isn't moving as with their bodies like the right way sometimes, and that's a little bit off-putting and weird to look at. You know what I mean?
That probably comes from like the generating new frames that didn't exist before.
Exactly, and there's no way to fault them for that, and I don't think that it's a problem with the movie. It's just something I wanted to point out a little bit.
It's almost like it's not a problem. It's almost just like this is the interesting byproduct of restoring old footage like this.
Right? Yeah, definitely. And it may be a bit distracting, but not really that bad. Like. Basically, I
would
really
say more
enjoyed this
interesting
movie.
than anything.
It's interesting from like making the film perspective and thinking about it. But as far as like watching it and getting engaged, like when it happens, it kind of takes me out of the moment and jars me just a little bit. But
I hear that.
Yeah, I'm more explaining myself than complaining, right? Like because this movie is really good to me. Like I was fascinated.
I mean, you don't
by
have to just bash the movie, Justin.
I know.
Lay off.
Okay, sorry.
You
Let me
didn't like it. Jeez.
All right. I'm putting the gloves back on. It's really good. It's super fascinating. I don't personally know a lot about World War One, and from like a factual standpoint, I know the general things that were going on during World War One. So, there was a bit of me that was expecting to learn a lot about World War One and like the facts about it and some of the situations around it. But this documentary doesn't do that, and to me, that was a bit of a relief. Like I actually enjoyed like that fresh take. Like it's not like a Ken Burns documentary.
Right? It's very much about the experience of the soldier, the average soldier.
Yeah, exactly. And it's told from like one country's perspective.
It reminded me a lot of Dunkirk.
Yeah,
only like a documentary version in a different war, obviously, but like very much like not concerned with the greater picture of like what caused the war, who was doing what, why did this all happen. It's very much like what was the experience that these people went through while they fought in this war.
Yeah, exactly. Like regardless of who wins and who loses, it doesn't really matter. It's just all about the experience and what these people went through and what they were thinking. And to me, that was just like, that was fascinating and a beautiful way to like approach this documentary as opposed to giving us the history of, and I really enjoyed all that. Like you said, Mike, the restoration and the coloring, like when it first comes on, because the movie starts out in black and white for a bit, and then it has a scene where it transitions to color, like in the same shot. And when that happens, like it hits you like a punch in the chest. You're just
it's like someone shifts gears in a car, and all of a sudden you're just like flying at 90 miles per hour. You know what I mean? Like it's just like you just feel like, holy crap, this is why I'm here. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and like overall, I didn't get super emotional. Later on in the film when some like more intense, emotionally intense things are happening, but like that transition is the one thing in this movie that like made tears come to my eyes. Just like seeing that footage that way, just is mind blowing. And overall,
agreed.
Oh man, it's a great experience, and I definitely think everyone should see it. It's going to work on you whether you're interested in World War I or not. So
yeah.
if
you are a human that has emotions. It'll affect you somehow, right? I don't know. I guess we'll see what Chris says.
Yeah. So I'll leave it there for now. So Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. Mike, I didn't have time to see this in December either, and I'm really glad, especially after having watched it, that I saw it in the theater. I think what Peter Jackson does, and you guys have both already said this, but to this film is phenomenal. The 24 frames per second, it goes from cartoony to identifying these people as real people. Like with the color and the 24 frames per second, all of a sudden they become real to me. Like I can watch the old black and white footage all day and these people are never real, or I don't have empathy for these people, right? And when Peter Jackson takes and puts 24 frames per second and colorizes it, and I actually really think it's just the 24 frames per second that does the most work, but I have empathy for these characters and I feel for them and I think of them as real people. And in that way, he makes World War I real for me. And just like you, Justin, I've always been, like my dad was always into World War II, Saving Private Ryan. Like World War II, I think especially for America is the war, like we don't really talk about
it's
World
the coolest
War I as
war.
much. Yeah. And so I wasn't as familiar.
Well, I mean, in a sense that like it's the war, right? It's the last time that America was undisputably in the right.
Right.
It's the last time we won.
Yeah.
It's the last time that like it was just like clear-cut black and white morals.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I was just giving you a hard time. I'm with you.
And then the other thing that he does that I love, and I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, Justin, as opposed to giving facts, I love how it feels like I'm sitting in a room with these guys as they're telling me my story. Or not my story, but they're telling me their story.
Their story.
Yeah.
They're like, Chris, you were born in the city.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, sir. Now I understand. No, but all that put together gives me an experience from World War I that I don't think I would have ever gotten anywhere else. Like it could have been that old footage, right? And it could have been those guys talking still and giving their stories. It wouldn't have worked. But when it gets to 24 frames a second and it colorizes it, all of a sudden I know these guys. They are people. And the last thing is that if you had told me that Peter Jackson, and maybe this is where I fall in line with you, Mike, but if you had told me that Peter Jackson was going to take old footage and muck about with it, I would have been against it. And for that reason, I'm glad I don't make those decisions, because this is an amazing film. You guys are both right. It's amazing what you can do once it gets to 24 frames a second. So, yeah, I agree completely with both of you guys.
One thing I thought was funny about a lot of this footage is I think it's cool to see, like, I think in almost, maybe not every shot, but I would say probably in at least 70% of the shots in this movie, you see dudes just staring at the camera.
Yeah.
Like, they are just fascinated with, like, what's going on. Like, you could tell cameras are still kind of a novelty back then.
Yeah, that's what he talks about. Like, everybody would kind of stand still because they're used to photographs and where you have to stand still for a while, so everybody kind of stands still. It is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It's like French New Wave almost, like when you're watching like Breathless, which is like, for those of you who aren't cinema fans, Breathless was a French New Wave film that kind of kicked off the French New Wave movement, and in a lot of it, he goes handheld with his camera, which had never been done before, goes through the streets of Paris, and in it, you see people stopping and literally just stopping what they're doing and staring at the camera, and it's in the movie.
Right.
That is in this movie all the time, only it's a documentary, so it makes sense. But anyway, I just think it was just really fascinating, right? Like it's just unabashedly people just stopping and staring at what's going on.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we're pretty used to cameras now, but I don't know. Sometimes, like in my experience, when people see a camera, they get pretty weird. So I don't know that we're that much different. And I think in some ways, like, that's a thing that connects me to them.
No, I think it's earnest though. I think it shows you, like, you know, these people are they're just living day to day, man. Like, they're not thinking about history. They're not thinking about how they're going to be remembered, you know?
Right.
They're just surprised.
Yeah, they're just like, what's that? You know? It's just fascinating. And also, I didn't realize, and this is terrible, right? This is like, I think, to me, the most eye-opening part of the documentary, because I've just never read up on World War I. I didn't realize that the age limit was more of an age suggestion back then.
Right.
Like, to join the military, right? Like, they would tell these young kids to go outside and have a birthday real quick. And that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. If they'd say, like, the age limit was 19, and if they come in and they said they're 17, and like, don't you mean you're 19? Wink, wink.
Yeah.
And then they'd say, like, oh,
go
yeah,
outside
19.
and come back in real quick and tell us a lie.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were okay with that. And I think, like, from what I remember, some of the accounts, am I right in remembering that someone was 15?
Yeah,
like one of the people talking was like, I was 15 and I went in and told them I was 19, and boom.
Yeah.
Like, which is insane.
Yeah, crazy to me. Like, I don't know. Like, morally, that is a very, like, that's the thing I have a problem with, right? That, like, but, like, what are you going to do? Right? You know, it's World War I, and that's what they had to do, you know?
Yeah,
but,
you can't lose something like that. Really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when the stakes are that high, I guess, but it disturbed me, right? Like, but I'm glad it was there, because I never knew that. Like I said, I'm sure that's really obvious knowledge that everyone who knows anything about World War I knows, but I didn't.
That's some of the more personal details that you learn, like, in this film, that are very interesting and very, like, eye-opening and, you know, shocking and all sorts of things, like, much more so than, like, learning, you know, what started the war and all that. So one other thing that I really liked, a touch that Peter Jackson did in this film, is that we have all of this voiceover from old interviews and old recordings of World War I veterans, and he uses them to, like, piece together the narrative, as we've said, of, like, kind of the average experience of the British soldier. But what he does is he never cuts to one of them talking. Like, we never get, like, that talking head interview shot to see them. And I think that's such a perfect choice and a wonderful thing to do. And this goes a little bit to what you said, Mike, about the film reminding you of Dunkirk, because it allows all of these voiceover to represent everybody and represent this general idea of a soldier.
Right. We're not cherry picking one or two people.
Right. And even, I think even seeing, if we saw every person and it was 50 people, like, seeing a person attaches that person to the story, right? and he wants it to be the general experience. And anytime we see any of these voices and have a face to connect with it, it's no longer about the general experience. It's about that person's experience. So I think that's like the smartest of touches.
Yeah, most of the time, you don't even really have a sense that the voice you're hearing is attached to the face you're looking at.
Exactly.
Right. And he kind of takes that a step further, too, because so we've been watching this footage, and towards the end, it's not the same footage, but he will show the close-up of a face and then show that show somebody else that had died. And it's kind of this representation of, like, we kind of had seen these people, or what I felt like we had seen these people's story, even though it's different footage. I don't know. I was strangely attached to these people by the end, even though it's several different, groups of people, just different footage.
Yeah. Well,
but when he shows them dead, it's upsetting. It affects you.
Yeah. Well, it makes everybody in the film who the film's story is about, right? Like, by keeping it so general, every single soldier that we're seeing, we're connected to, because what's being said and the story that's being related could be all of these people, right?
Right.
And that's what avoiding getting attached to one person or a person's face who's talking avoids. Like, we no longer get the sense of like, okay, well, that was a guy like we don't really know. It's like, in this way, we're attached to everybody, and it's all impactful.
Yeah, I agree.
This felt like a movie that I would have watched in a museum. Does that make sense? Like
on an IMAX, like a museum one day, like on a school field trip?
Or, like a school field trip or something.
Yeah, I get that.
It's better than that. It's not, but it's informative like that would be. Does that make sense? I went to Washington, D.C. one year, and I went to the Holocaust Museum, and there is a section in there where the survivors of the Holocaust are just telling their stories over the speakers, and you just go sit and listen to their stories. That's what this felt like to me. Like people from the past telling us their stories, and we got this image, and it was just really moving and really informative in the best way. Not informative in facts, but informative on what that experience was like. And for that, I mean, everybody should watch this. I really recommend. It should be played in schools. But yeah, it's really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it wasn't somewhere, right? Like, this seems like a movie you could show your grandpa or your dad, or anyone who in your family, like, isn't into fiction movies, even if they are or aren't. Like, I feel like no matter what, you could probably show this documentary to somebody and elicit an emotional reaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, one thing that I think affected me a lot in this documentary was the end whenever... it's so sad when they talk about coming back from the war and no one at home really understood, right? Like the soldiers felt unwelcome and sort of disillusioned.
Right.
And that upsets me because I don't think that has changed.
No, not at all.
In the subsequent years since World War I. War keeps getting more and more horrifying as the years go on, as our weapons improve and politics become more complicated. And yet, people still come home after we've used them, right? And they don't have anyone to turn to. They don't have any emotional support. They don't have anyone that really understands them or wants to put in the time to understand them. And I think of the whole documentary, I think that might be the thing that upset me the most.
Yeah.
Is because you hear about how, like, suicide amongst middle-aged men is higher than it's ever been before. Especially amongst middle-aged men who used to be soldiers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The fact that we still, as a society, don't want to look at this too closely because it makes us uncomfortable or what. I don't know what the reason. But
I think that's a good starting place, to be honest.
It upsets me. It truly does. And I hope it changes sometime soon. But the fact that it hasn't in over 100 years leads me to believe that it probably won't. It's probably just human nature to turn a blind eye on the people that protect us.
Well, I would say you're not wrong. We recognize things like PTSD, where I don't think that they recognized that back then. It doesn't mean that people necessarily get care for it. But yeah, we asked these men.
Back then,
boys,
they called it shell shock.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah,
you
that
actually
makes
see a
sense.
couple dudes with it, like after they're wounded.
Yeah.
Like you can see like a couple people like walking back with like their hands are shaking. Like I don't know if that results in like permanent shell shock, but they're experiencing something there, right? Like they're not. You can see like these dazed like 1,000-yard stare on these people walking back who are wounded, like people who have bullet holes in them, holding their wounds, walking back with just like this blank expression.
Right.
Yeah. I think, and I'm going to get, I don't know if it's political or like, commenting on culture, whatever. I'm going to get that way for a second, but like, I don't know that it's like we like want to turn the blind eye to the people who have served our country, because there are a lot of people out there who will, remember the troops and put bumper stickers and do that. But I think we want to do it on the most like basic surface level way. And I think to really understand and be there for them, we need to actually confront the worst parts of the things that they have to deal with. And that's what we don't want to do, like necessarily as a society. We don't want to confront just the ugly truth about it. You know what I mean? And like deal with what the reality of what they're dealing with, because it's hard. It's hard to think about like putting people through that and people going through that. Like,
well, it's hard. And I think on some level we know it's not right and not fair that some people have to shoulder this,
Yeah.
Like we, luckily, like our generations and the few generations before and after us, like we got lucky,
We didn't get drafted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But these poor people, it's tragic, man. And the idea that like society would expect this of them, shame them if they didn't go, and then if they come back
And want to talk about it.
view them as a burden. Yeah. It's just, it's dreadful.
We ask so much, whether it's 100 years ago or today, we ask so much of our troops, legitimately. We ask them to do our dirty work, the things that we don't necessarily want to do. And then the least we can do is when they come back, we can offer them, emotional support. And I'm not, like whether that's through a psychiatrist or just listening to a friend that's come back or whatever.
Sure.
It's the least we can do. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do some, but I would argue that it's not enough.
Yeah, it
Agreed,
highlights
yes,
how us as a society have failed them continuously over the past century.
Yeah, which is the not World War I focus, like making a comment about that situation, part of this film.
Sure, and like I said, this is about World War I. This is all what we're bringing to the table. But the fact that it stirred these emotions in me, I'm grateful to it for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I imagine that's why he put it in there too, to a certain extent.
Yeah. It's like that old Fallout 3 saying, war never changes.
Yeah. He should have closed the movie with that. I'm sure he's a
with
Fallout
3 saying, that would have been appropriate.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say, if I can change course, are we done on that subject?
No. Yes.
Okay. The 30-minute thing afterwards, I really enjoyed it. I do have like minor complaints about it, is that I felt that like it's very geared towards like the average audience member and very like simple and plain in a lot of places, and kind of brushes over a lot of stuff that I found really interesting. And I totally understand why they do that. They don't have a ton of time to put a longer video out there. But what I do want to say is that I hope that there is a longer behind the scenes
I'm sure there will be.
Thing coming, that like when this film comes out on Blu-ray or DVD or however.
Peter Jackson is the king of special editions.
Yeah, that's what I was about to bring that up, is like, I don't really care for the Hobbit films at all, but I did find fascinating the like 9 hours of behind the scene documentary that exists on every Hobbit film. I found
9 hours. Are you exaggerating, or is
no,
that
no.
No,
It's
I
long.
always admire, even the Lord of the Rings movies, I've never watched the extended cuts of those. I know everyone loves them,
I have.
but I have not yet watched the extended versions of those movies or the special features. But what I admire about Peter Jackson is, even if he is a filmmaker that I do not share sensibilities with, I appreciate the love and the respect he pays to the people who are fans of his movies.
Yeah, he gives them their money's worth on that
He
sort of
gets
thing.
it. Yeah, he gets it when it comes to that. He takes care of his fans, and I appreciate that. Even the making of those Hobbit movies, back in the day when he was making those, like he was posting like these like crazy behind the scenes like making ofs as the movies were going on, and showing you like how he filmed in 3D, involving like 2 cameras like on a mirror rig, you know?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think all of the special features like combine that stuff that he posted and like other stuff. But like I think each Lord of the Rings film and like each Hobbit film has like 8 to 10 to 12 hours of like special features for each one. Like it's insane. I've watched them for like the first 2 Hobbit films, and infinitely more fascinating than the actual Hobbit films.
Yeah, which aren't fascinating at all and are actually bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would watch those again, and I want to watch the Lord of the Rings ones, even though I have seen the extended cuts of Lord of the Rings, and I don't like them either, really.
I have seen all the Lord of the Rings movies in theaters, and I don't think I've seen any of them outside of theaters.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
I watched all of the extended cuts in a single day with a friend of mine who was a
holy
very
God.
big friend. Did I say he was a very big friend? I meant a good friend. I don't know why I said a big friend. He was
He's a
regular
very sizable
size.
friend.
He was regular size. He was about 5'8" and like 180 pounds, like just a regular dude.
No, but yeah, so Peter Jackson, like I have seen, like I said earlier, more bad Peter Jackson movies than anything.
Is this the best one? Is this his best film?
Yeah, hands down. This is the movie I have enjoyed from Peter Jackson the most.
So if nobody has anything else, I think that does it for the show, right?
Yeah, that does it for me. I think it sounds like we all recommend this movie, hands down.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for listening. And of course, as always, thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Yes, and stay tuned to this channel, subscribe, and our next episode next week should be over Alita Battle Angel. So we'll see what that's all about.
Yeah, so if you want to send us your questions on Alita Battle Angel or any other films that we've reviewed or we're going to be talking about in the future, remember to send those on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to @CasualCinecast.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
See you later.